Hi friends, welcome to Bookish Bliss, our virtual book club. Every week we will dig into a section of chapters in our favorite books. Let's get started!
Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of Bookish Bliss. We have a lot to discuss today.
Yes, this week we are covering chapters 42 to 54 of A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. There will be no spoilers beyond the covered chapters. You don't have to read the whole book to listen. You just have to be caught up on the chapters we're covering. Amanda, what are you drinking tonight, darling?
Water.
Water!
LaCroix Sparkling Orange, my very favorite sparkling water.
That is your
Just too
favorite.
lazy to go get something to drink, and all I have is Bud Light or tequila, and I can't do either of those right now on this lovely evening.
Yeah, that's a lot.
What are you drinking tonight?
Well, I still have some Merlot left over from last week, but look at this cute little wine
Oh,
stopper. It's
I love
love.
it.
So I'm going to be drinking this tonight. So,
Nice.
I'm pulling on camera.
That's right, honey. I already took a sip of my water, but
After today, I need this.
yes.
So I will cheers you to episode 29. Cheers!
All right, now let's get started with the good stuff and break down ACOSF Part V. Nesta is up first in our character section.
Perfect. I love it.
Our girl Nesta created a new magic sword, and according to Amryn, only the great powers can do that.
Mm-hmm.
One touch from Nesta while the blade was still hot and it was infused with her power. Amryn decided it should be treated as a new Dread Trove object. I agree with Amryn in this instance.
Well, yeah, because she created 3, so technically with there being 3 new magical objects, it automatically becomes a trove.
Right, yeah. It's fucking scary how powerful Nesta is. And it's never been more apparent than in this section we're about to find out.
Yeah, seriously.
Amryn's orders hold, though, that they will not tell Nesta of this, and Cassian is pissed.
Mm-hmm. Even Azrael was mad about it.
I know. He was too, but I feel like Cassian did his due diligence in fighting Amryn back.
Yeah, well, for once.
Yeah, for once. But that is until Feyre votes to tell her right away, and Cassian offers to do it. Unfortunately, doesn't come out right when he tells her, since he foolishly asks her what she would name a sword, and she starts questioning him, of course, because she knows everything and she's not dumb.
Yeah, she's like, you're being highly suspicious about why you're asking me what I would name a magical sword.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, there has to be a reason why.
She is pissed that Amryn voted to keep her out of the loop, but we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Yes.
Nesta was so heated that she went down all 10,000 stairs and walked into Valeris. She couldn't do it again, though, and could only get about halfway. So literally her fury is pushing her at this point. She walked down 10,000 steps, almost 5 miles.
And then continue walking through the city to Amryn's house without stopping.
Insane. Fully driven by fury.
I mean, I don't blame her. I really don't.
I don't blame her either, honestly. She's pissed and she's about to confront Amryn, and Amryn is probably the only one that could deal with this right now without shitting their pants.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like even if Feyre or Elaine, if Nessa came up on them like this, they would be like, oh fuck, I'm fucked.
Yes, yeah. Amryn can definitely hold her own against Nesta, but I definitely have some more thoughts that I will share on that later in the plot section.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on then. Nessa joins Cassian to meet Eris in the spring court, and Tamlin shows up. She gets them out of it, though, like the badass bitch that she is.
Mm-hmm.
But something interesting she says while she's there is that Elaine would love the spring court. It was made for someone like her.
There's just too many instances at this point. It just cannot be a coincidence. It really cannot. How many times Elaine is referenced to belonging in the spring court,
Yeah.
flower, like it's just too many to be a coincidence. I just feel like somehow, I don't know how, but Elaine will be in the spring court.
I agree. At this point, I don't even know if it's going to be Lucian or Tamlin or Azriel or whoever the fuck else has shown interest in her, but I think she specifically will be in the spring court somehow. So if
Yes.
it's not with Tamlin, he's going to lose the spring court.
Maybe she becomes a high lady of the spring court in her own right. I don't know, because
Yeah.
maybe nobody else wants it, or I don't, not that I think
Oh.
people would want the land, but I don't know, maybe because Tamlin doesn't have an heir, where does that magic go? Maybe it will
Yeah.
go right to Elaine because she's so aligned with the spring court.
Oh my god, yes, and she's gonna take over the abandoned land and make it all beautiful like her whole giant garden.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's happening. I'm convinced. There's no other scenario at this point.
Yeah.
The only surprise is gonna be the guy that she ends up with.
Yes.
We also get, of course, the sex scenes in this book, spicier than ever, and in this section, we get some 69 action.
We we do. She's never done that before, and she's
No.
very excited to be trying out a new move for the first time.
I know. I was like, damn. Elaine tells the crew about a time when Nesta stuck up for her against a jealous bitch by stealing the prince she was trying to impress for marriage and dancing with him all night.
Mhm.
Cassian realized that there had to be music for Nesta. The same way Fair was with paint, Nesta was with music. And I think this scene specifically just shows exactly the definition of Nesta and how she loves.
Mhm.
She's just petty and bitchy and will rip your head off, but she'll do
Yeah.
it all out of love. Like, she's not just doing it to be a bitch. She's doing it because she loves Elaine and you hurt Elaine, so she'll hurt you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just her love language, pettiness and cutting bitches down.
Literally. Slitting their fucking throat. That's like her line.
Yeah.
Nesta admits that she is glad Feyre forced her to move to the house, train, and work in the library. Hallelujah. She sees a fucking breakthrough.
Jesus. It's like Feyre when your family is taken care of. It only took 50 something chapters. Nesta was worse than Feyre.
I know, literally. Crazy. She doesn't miss anything about her former life as Fae, except the music. So she decides to join Gwen at one of her services to hear the music, and we will go into detail about that ceremony in world building.
Yes.
And one more time, before we stop talking about Nesta, I have to mention that the sex does not disappoint in this section.
No.
Sex for a week in the woods, a steamy session after training, and we learn it's a daily occurrence for them. But they still are never sleeping in each other's rooms. No cuddling.
I'm hoping after this interaction at the end of this set of chapters that they start becoming more intimate in other ways besides sex.
Yeah, I feel like her calling Cassian her
Her
friend
friend.
was the most intimate thing that happened between them.
I know, he's like, "Oh my god.
He's like, me? Me?
I'm your friend. I've always been your friend."
Yeah. He's like, "What do you mean? We're always gonna be friends." Oh.
Oh, cute.
But I have hope for them. I do.
Yeah.
Reese is up next in our character section, and this poor guy can't find anything to help Pharaoh with the labor. He's
No.
asked Jacob and Miriam because they have the seraphims.
Mhm.
He's asked Thesan because he has the peregrines,
Yep.
all these flying people. And he asks Helion, who agrees to have all his librarians and researchers that he can spare search his libraries. So everybody is on the job.
Yes.
Something else interesting about Reese in this section, Amryn thinks that Reese is destined to be High King. She believes it's a sign from the cauldron itself that Nesta made those swords for him to rule all of Prythian. But Reese will not entertain the idea.
I
Let's
agree.
talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that these objects were made for a reason, but Nesta made those objects. I don't believe that Nesta would ever make an object that was supposed to go to Reese from the cauldron. I
No.
just don't think there's
Even if it was
any logic in
accidentally.
that. Yeah, even
Yeah.
if it was accidentally, I don't think that those objects are supposed to be wielded by Reese to make him a high king. Does this
Yeah.
mean that I think that Nesta should be a high queen? I'm not saying yes, that she should be the one to become any sort of ruler. I think that would be so wild if someone from the Night Court just decided,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to fight and try to unite all 7 courts together. I just don't think that's even plausible, nor does it make sense. And I think it would just be a bad, bad idea.
Yeah, I can't see it happening the way that Amryn thinks, especially because I know she doesn't know this at the point that she says this comment, but he tries to use the sword or he picks it up and it's like resisting him almost. So why would it be made for him? And he's meant to be this high king if it's resisting him.
Yeah, the only thing that is kind of nerve-wracking is she's like, "Well, the cauldron's offering this to you now. It clearly wants someone to rule with these objects. So if you don't start ruling with it, then it's going to pass it on to someone else. And maybe that someone else is someone that is just intolerable and going to be an awful dictator."
See, I feel like even when you say it, it's like turning wheels in my head. I feel like that may happen. He's going to give it up. Somebody evil's going to get it. And that's how Nesta ends up as High Queen because she's going to be the one to come in and save the day, the only one that can really truly yield the sword
Yeah.
or swords, actually.
Swords in the
Yeah.
blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll have to keep on reading to see.
Yeah.
Cassian tells Eris about the Autumn Court soldiers and what happened in the Bog of Orid, and Eris is not happy, but Nesta takes care of him, of course.
Of course.
Cassian tells Nesta and the girls that he personally knew the Valkyries and they fought together in 5 battles. He was at the battle that took most of their lives because they had a foolish king and the Illyrians backed out of the battle. He agrees to teach both Illyrian and Valkyrie techniques to the girls, something old becoming something new. I
Mhm.
love this.
No, I
And it
know, I love
also
that.
just reminds me again how old this motherfucker is.
I know.
He literally fought with the Valkyries
Side
that
by
the
side.
princesses are researching and writing books about.
Yes.
That's
Yep.
wild if you think about it. Being trained by someone who actually was there and
Mhm.
knows,
Yeah,
you couldn't ask for
obviously,
anything better.
he never trained with them, but he has a great wealth of knowledge about what it's
Yeah.
like to fight side by side with them.
Yeah. We learned that Cassian had a
Had.
Valkyrie lover, Tanwyn. She died in the last battle, but he thinks Nesta would have fit in with them. I feel like we learned this for a reason.
Yeah.
Something's happening with Tanwyn, or a
Tanwin?
story coming.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Why tell us that then?
I don't know why they added in that little detail of him being lovers with the Valkyrie, but maybe because Nesta's on her way to becoming one, it just makes sense that his future mate lover would be a Valkyrie. I don't know.
Or to show how long it is since he's been in love?
Well, I don't know if he was in love with her, but he was definitely sleeping with her.
Oh, I thought it said, like, it made it seem like they were, like, lovers.
Well, yeah, they're lovers, and as they
Like,
have sex.
lovers.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's how I
You
took it, anyways. I didn't
silly
think that.
old
I
me.
mean, I'm sure he was fond of her and probably had feelings, but I don't know if he was in love with her.
Yeah. All right. Touche. On to Amryn.
Ugh. Okay.
Megan has some very serious opinions on Amryn in this section.
Yeah.
Amryn is literally riding Varian, the Prince of Adriata, when Nesta burns down her door. She is livid with Amryn and that she voted against her and is ready to confront her.
I also would be livid with Amarin if
Yeah.
because of this vote.
She doesn't even knock, nothing. She literally touches the door and it burns to ash.
Yep.
Nesta is so pissed about their interaction, which we'll get into in the plot section, but she ends up telling Feyre right in front of Amryn that they all knew her and her baby would die from the baby's wings. And Feyre is crushed. Not over the news, but over the fact that they kept it from them. She was the last to know.
Yeah, because literally Feyre should be not mad at anyone except Reese.
I feel like I'd be mad at everyone.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's coming from their High Lord and they are always up his ass when it comes to things like that, they're really not going to step out of line and tell her, even if they are friends. Which I
Yeah.
I think just brings it back to ACOSF, where Feyre's like, oh well, if Reese ever did anything like Tamlin did, Asriel and Cassian would have my back and help me out anyways. Which just goes to show you that one, they wouldn't,
They don't.
and two,
Yeah.
Reese broke his promise to you in ACOSF that he would always tell you the truth and keep you in the loop and not leave you out of anything and to make your own choices and decisions. So he
Yeah.
literally is just a liar in
Yeah.
in this portion of their life.
I feel like, too, I didn't really expect them to say something to her, but I expected them to push Reese to say something to her,
I'm not surprised.
almost. But that was a very valid point you made, and you changed my mind, but that's how I was feeling before you made that point. Because it's true, she did say that, and it's kinda sad now when you think about it that she was so wrong, and she knows
Mhm.
them more now, for years now, fought in war besides them, and almost died multiple times, and
For them, yeah, I mean, it's just definitely hurts more than it ever would back in Akamath.
yeah, for sure. Reese warns Cassian to get Nesta out of the city before he fucking kills her. Overreacting, drama king. But, anyways, Cassian obeys and takes Nesta to the wilderness. Feyre tells them to come home, though, and that Reese overreacted. And Cassian decides he will stay with Nesta and make her hike in the woods. They're gonna stay together for a couple days, which turns into like a week, doesn't it? At least.
Yeah, yeah, it's a while.
It's a while. Nesta, at this point, though, she's feeling depressed again. She wants to stop existing, but she and Cassian hike and don't speak. And she's just basically currently hating herself, her life. She's pissed. She's sad that she did this or broke this news to her sister in this way. But I feel like deep down, she's glad Feyre knows, but
Mhm.
also shitty way to come out for sure.
Yeah, no, the way she
Could have done a
delivered
little bit
it
more.
was
Yeah,
definitely not right, but the girl deserved to know, and I
absolutely.
don't think Nesta did anything wrong, but by
Yeah.
saying it in anger, but what she said wasn't wrong.
Right, right. So these two are hiking for literally days, and Nesta isn't drinking enough water and faints. But she gets back up and keeps on trekking. Nesta has a mental breakdown and bawls her eyes out and spills all her feelings and fears and failures, everything, to Cassian, who makes her feel better. And it really is a good bonding moment for them. And then they spend a week fucking and sword training before they return to Valeris.
Amen.
She gets out all the tears and gets on top. And
Yeah,
probably on the side and the bottom.
literally everywhere.
But now we're going to move into our world building section where we will discuss more of the events that our favorite characters get into in this section. The last of the magic swords before Nesta accidentally created three were Gwydion, which was the holy savior, so the good sword. Cassian and Reese and Az used to play games with a stick that they pretended was the sword back when they were kids, which I thought was cute.
Yeah, I mean, it had such a history. The last High King that ruled Prithian ruled with that sword. And so I think that's just obviously an important factor.
Thank God we have Megan here for all the important things. Narbin, which was a sword that was actually older than Gwydion, but Amarantha destroyed it or threw it in the ocean. We don't know which. But they assume she threw it in the ocean because it would not bend to her when she found it. It was far darker than its twin sister, I don't know what to call it, than the other sword,
Then the other
Gwydion.
magical sword.
Yeah. And here we are talking about this stupid bitch Amarantha again.
Right? She's always coming up no matter what. It's like fucking word vomit for Sarah J. Maas. She's like, oh, I haven't brought her up in a couple chapters. Let's talk about her again.
Is she gonna fucking come back to life? Did somebody save her finger?
I don't think so.
I hope not.
Was it Gwydion or Narbin that was created by the cauldron? The sword was given its powers when the high priestesses of Oleana dipped it into the cauldron during its crafting.
So Gwydion was made by the cauldron, but the other one was not.
I think Narbin came from a death god.
Oh, that makes sense because it's darker, scarier, eviler.
Yeah, I mean, it could have come from the cauldron, but I think Narbin was created by a death god.
Okay. According to Gwen, their training as Valkyries would be complete if they can slice a ribbon in two. At first, when I read this, I'm like, I could do that with a sword. But then when nobody else could do it, I was like, okay, maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah, the ribbon just is like floating in the wind. I feel like you have to be like
Oh,
so
okay.
skilled with a sword to be able to slice through it so that it actually goes through it, not just
You're
like
right.
slides off of it.
I was literally thinking it was like karate, where somebody like holds it like this.
No, I don't think anyone's holding it. I think it's just like tied to a stick, but I'm pretty sure it's just flowing in the wind.
No, you're so right. That makes way more sense. Yeah, I definitely couldn't do that.
No, I couldn't do it.
Emery is up first and she can't do it. So Cassian takes the sword and finishes the cut. So he kind of wants to prove to himself, I think, at this point that he can do it.
Yeah, he's like, thank God I can do it.
Yeah, he's like, whew, that would have been embarrassing.
Yeah.
No one else could do it yet, and they tried it at the start and end of each lesson. So they're trying, but
Yep.
I guess
They're
they're
not
not
ready yet.
Valkyries yet. Yep.
Not ready.
They also started shield training.
Mhm.
The shield was so heavy it could also be used as a weapon, so that is probably brutal training to be adding to their very hectic schedule of sword playing. But let's get into this priestess ceremony in the prison
Okay.
because I was very, very taken aback by how fast this kind of took off here. So,
Okay.
Nesta attends the priestess's ceremony, and Gwen helps lead prayer with Clotho and Meryl, who was really not pleased to see her,
She's
which
like, what
I was
are
a
you
little
doing
nervous.
here?
Yeah, I was a little nervous about that. I was like, oh shit, what's going to go down between them two?
I know.
At this religious ceremony. Nesta enjoyed the music and thought their voices were like a parade. Individually beautiful, but also woven into a beautiful pattern of loveliness. Nesta gets lost in the music, but ends up scrying for the fucking harp.
Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, my thoughts were literally like, okay, Nesta, but also like, what the fuck? All of a sudden I see harp, 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 and I'm like, my magnifier glass comes out. I'm like, harp talk?
I
Like the
know.
harp that we need talk? And
I
then all of a
know.
sudden, whoosh, it just takes off.
She used her own bones and the stones around her to scry. That is insane.
Insanity. Nesta goes home right away and tells Cassian that the harp is under the prison. So remember, we learned about the creatures that are in the prison. So at
Mhm.
this point, all I'm thinking is, oh shit, who the fuck are we gonna see? Like, I'm
Yeah.
ready for it.
Yeah.
It's going down. And I'm
Yeah.
hyperventilating, and it's like midnight when I'm reading this. Reese tells him he has it shielded because he was nervous that Baron would try to free the inmates and use them as they used the bone carver in war. So Reese
Smart.
gives Cassian the sword that Nesta made and told him he will work on the shield and to give Nesta the sword. He hopes she won't have to use it, but if so, he definitely is eager to see how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Interesting that he gives it to her
Well,
so
he definitely
willingly.
doesn't want to use it first himself because what if it's like magically tied to Nesta? What if something
Yeah.
bad happens to the user of the sword if it isn't Nesta? You just, I guess, never know.
Yeah, you never know, I guess, until somebody else uses it, but you're right. It ain't gonna be him.
Mhm.
Nesta and Cassian head to the prison. She leads Cassian to the spot that she sees in her trance. And he's scared to let her go into this ward alone, but it's a chance that she convinces him to take.
Yep.
When she touches the harp, it showed her Bryalan wearing the crown, and it had seen her and was able to get information about Nesta the longer that she held it. She
Mhm.
tells Cassian that someone wicked had used the harp last and trapped all its enemies and their children in the stone itself.
So Nesta can see in this vision when she's holding onto the harp that she sees people like banging against the stone, and that was the last time the harp was used.
Mhm.
So I don't know if she's thinking, oh, it was keeping people out of the prison, or if they're in like stuck in this stone or where they are, but she just knows that there was some yelling and screaming going on the last time the harp was used.
Oh, I thought she said that they were in the stone itself. That's why I thought they were like stuck in the stone.
Oh no, they're definitely not stuck in the stone.
Oh, okay.
Unless she
Okay.
thinks that, but I don't think so.
Okay.
They're not. I know they're not stuck in the
Yeah,
snow.
yeah. She pulls a string on the harp to open the ward, and the pressure that she's feeling from the ward vanishes. And
Mhm.
remember from episode 27 that the harp can open any door, physical or otherwise, and some
Mhm.
say between worlds.
Mhm.
So if she's playing this harp, she's opening some doors. She's not just relieving this ward from her.
Right.
Nesta names her sword Ataraxia in this crazy sentimental moment her and Cassian have right before they notice Lanthy's door is wide fucking open. The wards are not the only open door in this prison from this little string on this harp.
Yeah, I think it's just because his door was in such close proximity to where
Yeah.
she dropped the wards that, yeah, the harp's like, oh, well, opening this door too. But I also want to know what the name means. She says she found it in a book it's in the language of the old fae, but Lanthus seems to think like that's a weird name to call a sword, but it doesn't
Yeah.
say what it means to us in the
Yeah.
book.
I know. I remember that part, but I thought it was because it was like a good name,
Mm,
not an evil name, and he thinks the sword is evil,
yeah.
which we don't know what it is. So it could be evil, it could be bad, but that's the feeling I got from reading it. Was like, So she's trying to turn around this dark magic. At least she's not going to be evil, is what I
Right.
thought in that moment.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So, from episode 26, we learned that Lanthes could turn into wind and rip the air from your lungs, or turn into rain and drown you on dry land. He could peel your skin from your body with few movements. He was really, really evil, but this Ashwood mirror captured him long enough to put him in the prison. So, that's the
Mhm.
story again of why he's there. But
Mhm.
we will get into the rest of what happens with Lanthes in the plot section, but I'm
Yeah.
just gonna end world building. Well, not end world building because we still have our favorite section, fast magic. But I'm gonna end this little section by saying that was just another epic chapter 54, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it was a good one. It was a good
It
one to
was
end
good.
on. Ends on
Yeah.
a cliffhanger almost. You know how I love to do that.
I know.
So,
You love to torment me.
I'm pretty sure the next section ends on a cliffhanger as well. So,
Oh, shit.
so exciting.
I'm itching to get to this plot section, so I'm gonna blast through this fast magic here. But first, of course, we have to sing our little jingle.
Yes.
2, 3, fast magic. Fast magic.
And we're so happy so many of you seemed to like it when we posted it on our
I know.
Instagram and TikTok the other
Yeah,
day.
it's getting more love than the spicy TikToks that we
I
post and the
I
spicy videos.
know. Fast Magic beat the spicy post I did.
I knew my jingle was gold. I knew it.
I knew it.
All right, here we go. Fast magic. Nesta forged the swords when she was observing and helping the blacksmith. When Nesta returns from the spring court, she sees this throbbing shadow, but Cassian then comes into the room and it vanishes. The house.
Another mention, though, of a dark entity down in the library.
Yes. Is it? What was his name that was stuck down there? Braxis. Was
That,
it him? Is it him?
no, I don't think so.
Is it something of the same species as him?
I don't even know if I know, or I don't remember if
Okay.
I know. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. We'll leave it at that for now. The house is taking care of Nesta again, giving her warm milk.
Mm-hmm.
Varian put a water shield up to protect him and Amryn from Nesta when she barged into Amryn's place and burned down the door.
Mm-hmm.
Nesta scried in the priestess ceremony and saw the harp.
Mm-hmm.
Nesta lets Brayalan into her mind and eyes by touching the harp. Nesta uses the harp to open the wards and Lanthe's door, accidentally.
Mm-hmm.
Koshi's power winnowed in Autumn Court soldiers of the prison, which I feel like was our final confirmation that he's working with Brayalan. I feel like it's still up in the air until this moment,
Yeah, I guess they
if
don't
they're working
have
together.
any solid proof that he is, but they just know he is, and now they know for sure.
Because Brayalan can't winnow people,
Right.
and he can. So they're like, it has
Yes.
to be him.
But that's crazy how powerful he has to be literally on the continent somewhere, trapped on a lake, and he's winnowing people to the prison, which is further than the night court. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And Nesta even makes a comment about how many there are, and they just keep coming. Like, he's not stopping. He's
Yeah.
sending an army over there, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Nesta uses the harp to basically winnow to Cassian
Mm-hmm.
because she runs away, which we'll talk about later. And then she's like, no, gotta save my man. Heads back, basically winnowing to Cassian using the harp. Then Nesta uses her sword, Ataraxia, and her powers to kill the immortal, unkillable Lanthes. And
Mm-hmm.
then uses the harp again to winnow to Feyre and Rhysand's estate, her and Cassian.
Yep.
And that's it. for fast magic and world building.
This girl loves to use the trove. She's used the
She loves it.
mask, she's used
Yeah.
the harp, now she just
She's
needs
used
to
this
get the
sword
crown.
from her trove, her own trove that she created.
Yep. Before we start the plot section, we're taking a little sippy
Oh,
sip before we start.
yes,
Cheers.
I'm parched. Cheers.
All right, this is a long one, so bear with me. Chapter 42. Cassian is called to the river house to meet with Reese, Amryn, and Azrael. The blacksmiths that Cassian and Nesta went to see brought him three interesting new weapons. It was the three blades that Nesta helped create. The blacksmiths said they were cursed. Reese and Amryn talk about how back in the day the High Fae could imbue weapons with their power. They believe Nesta has done this even though no one has made a magical sword in over 10,000 years. We learned that the sword was named Gwydion, but the last ruler to use the sword had been betrayed by his queen and his general. It was the biggest backstab in history. Now there are no more high kings, just high lords. But Amryn believes Nesta has created a new trove since the first trove was made by the cauldron and Nesta has cauldron powers. Cassian believes if Nesta created more than that, that they would be unstoppable in any battle or war, but Amryn does not want Nesta to know about the power she currently has. Cassian and Azrael disagree with this and let Feyre be the deciding factor. In other news, the search for a way to help Feyre and the baby have come to a dead end. No one knows how to help her, and Reese is really going through it. But he is
Mhm.
still searching, and in the meantime, he is not telling Feyre. Big mistake. Also,
Mhm.
Amryn pops back in while the boys are inspecting all three blades and tells Reese that he could become High King with these three blades. Reese does not want this, though. The others seem to think it could be better for Prithian if all seven courts were tied as one. Amryn doesn't think it's a coincidence that all these objects are just here, like the swords that made a High King 1,000 years ago. That the cauldron wanted Reese to have these objects, and if he doesn't take it, then the cauldron will offer it to someone else. Oh man, this has to
Mhm.
mean something. She would not just bring this up for no reason.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, I just have so many feelings about this chapter. I am so disappointed with Amryn from wanting to keep these powers away from Nesta or informing
Yeah.
her she has them. I just think that's way more dangerous
Same.
for her not to know that she could accidentally imbue her powers into an object when she didn't
Yeah.
mean to. I think that is deadly and dangerous. And I
Yeah.
tend to usually agree with Amryn's advice when it comes to things, but between her not wanting to tell Nesta about the powers that she has and what she can do, and wanting Reese to become High King and become a dictator by really overthrowing six other High Lords, that is
Yeah.
literally insane.
I know, and the point she makes about all of them needing to band together to face the next disaster that they're gonna face, but I feel like they already banded together when they went against Hybern. Why can't they just do it all as High Lords?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be less of a headache if because it was
Would
a
it?
I mean, no, it wouldn't be less of a headache, but I think she was like, well, if we already have control instead of trying to force Tamlin's hand and force Baron's hand because the summer, winter, dawn and day are going to be in line to fight whatever
Yeah.
bad guy comes up next. It's really just autumn and spring you have to worry
Yeah.
about and handhold. But at the end
Mhm.
of the day, like Tamlin showed up and Tamlin made sure Baron showed up too.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really just don't think it's necessary for Reese to be like, oh, okay, I have these three magical objects now and almost the first Dread Trove as well, and I'm going to come and take over. It's literally just going to prove everything the entire of Prithian thinks about Rhysand, and he has been trying to prove that he is not that guy, and
Yeah.
I just think it would be just such a bad look and such a bad decision, but I don't know. Like, obviously, she's bringing this up for a reason. So, at the end of the series, is there going to be a High King or a High Queen? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
I feel
tending.
like there is. It's a good possibility at this point because it's been said multiple times now, not
I
even just in this instance. So,
I know. And I just
yeah.
I don't know if that's like the direction I would like to see the Night Court going in. I feel like I
Yeah.
love how the Night Court is based on, people's choices. Well, I guess the Human City isn't, Valaris is, but I feel
Right.
like becoming and taking over all seven courts would be such a Human City move.
Yeah, and I honestly can't see it happening that way. I can only see it happening for Reese or Nesta or anyone really in our crew, that it would almost be like they would want that him to step up and do that, like all the High Lords, or a necessary move to survival. I can't
Yeah.
see it being like I'm going to be in charge and that's the end of it.
Yeah, but I even feel like if Baron tried to be High King and they all banded together to stop him, like I really don't even think Reese would then be like, okay, well, I'm High King now. Like I feel like
Yeah.
he would just put the courts back how they were. I don't know.
Right. But speaking of Reese and not wanting to be High King, that's actually what my notable line is about. Chapter 42, page 452. Reese says, I will not be High King. I will not consider it. Not today and not in a century. Amryn says, then explain to me why, after thousands of years, objects that once crowned and aided the old Fae have returned. The last time a High King ruled Prithian, it was with a magic sword in his hand. Look at that great sword before you, Rhysand, and tell me that it's not a sign from the cauldron itself. Cassian says, it's a fluke. Nesta didn't make it on purpose, but Amryn says nothing is a fluke.
I agree with her there. I don't think it is a fluke that this sword was
Yeah,
made by Nesta. I
same.
just don't think it means what she thinks it means.
I agree 100%. I think there is a reason why it's being said. It's definitely not a fluke, but I agree. I don't think Rhys is meant to be the High King in this instance.
I
Right
don't.
now, anyways.
Yeah,
With
no,
the
I don't.
information we have at hand. And
Yeah.
he doesn't want it, not even in a century. So
Yep. Well, he also doesn't think he's gonna be around in, like, 6 months or whatever it is
true.
when Feyre
Yeah.
gives birth, so
Yeah,
it
and they don't know about that yet.
no, they don't, not even Amryn, so, I mean, her saying this, she has no idea, like, what is to come if Rhys and Feyre die,
Right.
so that also could be why Rhys is saying that he doesn't want to be High King or even consider it, but I would like to think he's saying that he didn't wanna do that because of, like, how he is as a ruler and not wanting to be like a dictator taking over Prithian.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right. Chapter 43. Nesta and Cassian go on a little field trip to the spring court to have a meeting with Eris. They update Eris on his missing, now mostly dead soldiers, which ensues bickering between allies. Tammy finds them having this meeting in his lands and of course is all mad about it. Nesta
Mhm.
stands up to Tamlin and blames him for what happened to her and Elaine. Nesta also points her finger at him and tells him she will kill him if he tells anyone that they were in the spring court having this meeting.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, not too much happened. I feel like this was like a little filler scene or just like had to be done to update
Yeah.
Erison. And I mean, this is the second time they've popped into the spring court to have a meeting. So I feel like they had to have Tamlin come into the scene because, he's a hot mess, but he's not delusional. So,
Yeah, I think that was intentional too, for him to show that Tamlin is not out of the game for real. He's still around. Is he doing his best right now? No, but
no.
he's still there and he still is protecting his land.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
last time they were in the spring court, Eris, made a point to say, like, oh, there's a rumor that Tamlin is in his beast form, barely speaking, not giving a shit if people are on his lands or not, or
Yeah.
protecting his lands. And I think by showing Tamlin in the scene now, yes, he's in beast form, but he's speaking and he
Yeah.
will kill anyone that is threatening his land. So I think that's a good sign, as we know we will need him in any upcoming conflict.
Yes, and I know you kind of mentioned this in your summary, but Tamlin has to do with my notable line for this chapter, so I'm going to go ahead and insert it right here. Chapter 43, page 460. Nesta points at Tamlin and he says, "Put that finger down, you witch." Nesta says, "I'm glad you remember what happened to the last person I pointed at. We're going now. Tell anyone you saw us, High Lord, and I'll rip your head from your body, too."
Yeah. Such
Ooh!
a badass, though he deserved that tongue lashing, from
Absolutely.
Nesta. I think it's been a long time coming. She has not really seen him at all, besides probably a distance on the battlefields and at the house after the war, where she
Yeah,
really got to give a piece of her mind because he caused her a lot of trauma
I
and
know.
is now high fae because of him. So I think, this little scene had to happen.
Yeah, and I feel like even when she sees him, she is flashing back to when he broke into the cottage
Yeah.
in his beast form because he was fucking scary, and she was this poor little fucking hungry girl. Like, what was she gonna do? And now she's like, oh hell no, I ain't no little weakling anymore.
Yeah, and of course she doesn't like what Tamlin did to Feyre, and that's like in her thoughts too as she's
Yeah,
talking to Tamlin and having this interaction with him. And then of course Eris is just Eris being a little shithead at the beginning of this
I know,
chapter, taunting Cassian for no reason. And
I
of
know.
course Nesta goes toe to toe with him. She's like, "You're not gonna talk to my man that way."
I know. So she tells off Eris and Tamlin all in one chapter in like 6 pages.
She didn't even break a sweat. Meanwhile,
Nope.
Cassian is itching his skin off in the spring court.
Literally.
And like Amanda said earlier, this is the chapter where Nesta mentions that Elaine would be perfect for the spring court. And it's also interesting, now that I really think about it, that she mentions this and then we see Tamlin, which we didn't see him the last time. So I
Oh,
don't know. It might
interesting.
mean nothing. It might mean nothing, but it might mean something. And I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Yeah, we gotta call it out just in case.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anything you would like to add about Tammy Do Nothing?
Tammy do nothing. He did nothing for once, and it was a good thing.
Yes. All right. Moving on to chapter 44, we learn a new little tidbit about Cassian in this chapter. He fought side by side with the Valkyries in the war. He fought by their side for 5 battles and even had a little romance with one of them, like Amanda said earlier. Cassian asks Gwen to bring all the research she has on the Valkyries and their fighting styles and techniques so he can start incorporating them into their training. We end this chapter with Cassian having dinner at the river house, and Elaine tells a story about how Nesta was trained in dance and how she stood up for Elaine against a mean girl and used the dance to steal a potential suitor away from that little biatch who was mean to Elaine. Cassian knows he needs to get music back into Nesta's life. So I feel like nothing
Yeah,
all that exciting happened, except now we know they're really going to start incorporating the Valkyrie fighting style into their training alongside the Illyrian fighting style to have a nice little mixture of both. And then we get the story about Nesta, which I guess it is good to see a flashback of Nesta from Elaine
yeah,
and kind of Feyre's point of view because she adds to the story a little bit as well. But I guess it's nice to see that Nesta's always been Nesta. She's been like this since she
yeah.
was a little girl, and we know that's because her grandmother and their mother were fucking horrible bitches to her.
Horrible.
But I don't know. I guess it just, like you said earlier, it shows Nesta's always been Nesta. This is how she shows she loves someone, and at the end of the day, she's not going to take anyone's shit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And she loves hard.
Yep.
But I also think it's interesting about the whole thing with Cassian and the Valkyries. I feel like it makes the priestesses trust him even more
Right.
because fought side by side with them. Like, he actually cares. And now he's going to incorporate the training of the Valkyries with the Illyrians. He's just so open and inviting.
Yeah.
And this is actually where my notable line is, chapter 44, page 465. The Valkyries fought even when the bravest males would not. The Illyrians tried to forget that. I fought against the males who were my superiors, arguing to help the Valkyries. They beat me senseless, chained me to a supply wagon, and left me there. When I came to, the battle was over and the Valkyries were slain. This just shows how much he was on their side. He fought against the Illyrians who backed out of the battle.
Mhm.
He was beaten and chained
Mhm.
and still tried to get there as fast as he could.
Yeah, and I think this also just we get two stories of both Cassian in the past and Nesta in the past that really shows who they are as like
Yeah,
deep down what their character really is in this chapter. So I guess there is a point to
definitely.
to this chapter as we get to see that this
Yeah,
is how they've always been, this is who they will always be, and this is how they love and fight for what is right.
for sure.
All right, chapter 45, Cassian, the next day at training, starts teaching the girl gang Valkyrie methods. He also tries to sneakily ask Nesta what she would name a sword, but she couldn't really answer, even with Gwen and Emery coming up with some silly names. Nesta is suspicious, though, and wants to know why Cassian wants to know what she would name a sword. Nesta, finally, after pushing, gets the information out of him, which included the blacksmith, the new dread trove, the vote. He cannot keep any information from her. Nesta is so angry by the vote that she makes it down all 10,000 steps without even thinking about it and makes her way into Valaris.
When I finished this chapter, I was like, oh shit, what's about to go down?
I know. It's just so devastating because she feels like she's up there getting better, doing her healing, doing what they've asked of her, just like we were saying the other day with the
Mhm.
Gwen comment from Reese. And then she's like, what is all of this for if all of you are going to just continue to vote against me, continue to doubt me? There is literally no point for me to even live my life at this point. She is just so
Yeah.
angry. She's like, what else can I do? What else can I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah, and this is actually where my notable line is for chapter 45, page 476. Cassian is telling Nesta what happened with the vote to tell her or not. And she says, there was a possibility that you wouldn't even tell me. You all sat around and judged me, and then you voted. And she was crushed to find out that Amron voted against her.
hmm
So,
Reese, she can understand because they don't have a good relationship.
yeah.
Even though he saw her trauma when he went into her head after that nightmare she was having, she still expects Reese to vote against her because they don't get along. But even though she had an argument with Amron, she's like, am I really that bad from that one argument with you that you
Yeah.
would still vote against me? And I
Yeah.
agree. It is so dangerous for her not to know because what if she accidentally created something and then hurt someone? It would
I know.
be horrible, one, but two, it would just add to everything she's guilty about and feels like she's failed at.
Exactly. Yeah. And she would be eating herself alive over whatever happened if something happened forever. And they wouldn't feel guilty about it. They would be avoiding her.
Oh no, they would just blame her and be like, oh, it's just Nesta's
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
Poor older
Sad.
sibling problems. It always falls onto you.
I do have to mention I was right about the stairs though. One of my earlier predictions was that she was making it down the 10,000 and she did.
She did. In anger, but she did it. Moving on to chapter 46. This is the big and explosive chapter in this section. Nesta, in her
Yes.
anger, storms through the city to Amron's apartment. Nesta interrupts Amron's fun times with Varian and kicks him out of the apartment. Her anger is so bad and she feels so betrayed, but Amron holds her ground and feels like with this current outburst, no training is going to fix her until she starts actually addressing the problem. Feyre shows up to stop them from fighting, and this turns the situation from bad to freaking horrible. Feyre says that Amron is her friend and
Mhm.
she respects her, which makes Nesta say if Amron and the others even respect Feyre, who is their high lady, and Feyre's like, well, what does that mean? Why are you saying that? And Nesta, in her anger, tells Feyre about the baby and how the wings during delivery will kill both Feyre and the baby. Reese then tells Cassian to get Nesta out of the fucking city before he kills her. So Cassian swoops Nesta up, grabs a go bag from Asriel, and flies them both into the mountains. Like,
Wild.
kind of understand where Amryn is coming from in this section because she's like, look at your outbursts now.
Yeah.
This is what we're all scared of. Like, you have no control over your magic. You have no control over your powers. You have no control over your emotions. And that's why we have
Yeah.
to really think about what we're telling you when it comes to certain things because you don't have control over any situation, how you handle things. So I do somewhat understand, but I still think that it was too dangerous not to tell her. And Nesta has every right to be upset.
Yeah, I feel like it kinda contradicts her argument
Yeah, it
that
does.
she's saying she's fucking dangerous and uncontrollable, and then you're not gonna tell her, so doesn't that make her even more uncontrollable? At least if she knows she can literally imbue objects with evil death magic, she can maybe try and work on it a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, knowledge is power. And by taking that away, it just makes her, like you said, even more dangerous.
Exactly. My notable line for this chapter is actually what Nesta says to Feyre in front of Amryn. So I'm going to go ahead and read that real quick. We can talk about it. Chapter 46, page 482. Nesta and Amryn are in a heated argument when Feyre shows up to defuse, but Nesta says to her, "Is it respect that she offers you?" And Amryn warned, "Don't you say one more fucking word, Nesta Archeron." And Feyre says, "What do you mean?" Nesta says, "Have any of them told you, their respected high lady, that the babe in your womb would kill you?"
I know.
She's like, "Respect?
Well,
You think they respect you?"
but it's so true. And here is another.
Yeah.
So we just have the chapter like 2 before this where Nesta gets angry, showing us what Nesta does when you hurt someone she loves. And
Yeah.
Feyre showing up there was just going to do what she thinks is the right thing to do, which I probably would have
I
done the
know.
same thing if I was Feyre. But she's showing up there
Yeah.
to try to save Nesta from doing anything stupid. And Nesta's like, "Do you think they respect you?" Because now
Yeah.
she's comparing their two situations. She's like, "They don't respect you. They don't respect me." And in anger, tells Feyre what is going on. But Feyre should have known this from the second they found out what the actual issue was and what the consequences
Yeah.
or what was going to happen to her and the baby.
Nessa kind of makes a good point too, when she says that they judged me
Mm-hmm.
and decided that I'm not worthy of knowing, and they did the
Same
same
thing
exact
to
thing to
you.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did that. You're supposed to be high
Yeah.
lady equal with Rhysand when he says it at the end of Act Map. He's like, not wife, not consort. She is high lady. She will rule by
Yeah.
my side and be my equal in every way. And he took all of that away from Feyre with this
Yeah.
pregnancy and sat around and decided that she couldn't handle it and took away her
Yeah.
power. So,
And she handles it like a boss, which we'll find out in later chapters, but like,
mhm.
just so stupid how they think
But
sometimes.
for Reese to be
Men.
like, "Get Nesta out of this city before I fucking kill her," was actually insane.
Yeah.
Insane. How about you get out of this fucking city before Feyre kills you?
Yeah. And I even was like, "What? You're gonna kill Nesta?" Like, yeah, shouldn't have come out from Rhysand, yes, but you were never gonna tell her, and you pissed
Nope.
Nesta off by not telling her that very important information about what she can do with her powers. So, I mean,
Yeah. She's like, "This city and these people have no respect for us, and you're my sister.
yeah,
So
yeah,
this is how I show you that I love you, even though I'm angry. Like, this is how I show you that you're being disrespected and something bad is being done to you, and you deserve to know."
I agree. She definitely deserved to know. Should it have come out in anger? Maybe not. Could have been a little bit
No.
more gentle with it, but if it was gonna come out in anger, it was gonna come out in anger.
I mean, and just to think that it would never come out of
I know.
anybody is just
And then she's
really
just gonna
naive of
die?
Rhysand. And it's crazy. They're still both, I mean, I guess they're both doing it to the rest of their court by not telling them the consequences of Feyre dying.
Yeah.
They still haven't said if Feyre dies, Rhysand's dying too, and who knows what's going to happen to the court.
Yeah.
Like, they're just stupid. Honestly, just it's
I
just
feel like he's
stupid.
almost
It's really
scared that it's
stupid.
going to happen, because why would you wanna keep it a secret if it was available? You know what I mean? I feel like he
Right.
doesn't even think there's any hope at this point.
Right. So I feel like he needs to get his ducks in a row,
Definitely.
which means telling the inner circle that they're gonna die and they're gonna be without a high lord and lady until who and God knows who the power is gonna go to.
Yeah.
Just so many emotions about it.
So, my god. I
But
just had the
but we
worst thought in my head.
oh no, what?
That and Feyre die, and that's how Nessa becomes the High Queen, because all the Prithian High Lords try and take over their territory, and Nessa stops them.
Mm, that is a good prediction.
Catch you on the next book.
Catch you on the next book. All right, before we get into any more doom and gloom, we need to go and deal with Nesta and her trauma. So, chapter 47, once they are safely in the mountains, Cassian goes to start a fire, and Nesta curls up against a rock far away from the fire and just closes her eyes. She is completely shut down. Cassian, just sitting alone, has a mind to mind conversation with Feyre. Feyre reassures him that she is okay. Even if Nesta told her out of anger, she still deserves deserved and needed to know. Cassian is angry, but can see after he speaks with Feyre that Nesta was relating their two situations, and in her own way, Nesta was trying to help Feyre out. Cassian says he is going to take Nesta hiking for a few days and he will return with her when he thinks she's ready.
Were you
Okay.
surprised the way Feyre reacted?
A little bit. I expected a bigger blowout between Reese and
Really?
Feyre. I thought that, just looking at Feyre in the past of how she's handled situations of being left out in the loop is
Yeah.
not like, oh, well, I just need to be calm about it for the baby, which I totally understand. Like, she should be calm for the baby and for her pregnancy since it's already obviously a big risk, anyways, that she doesn't
Yeah.
want to add to it. But I think old Feyre and Akamav and Akawar would not put up with that bullshit from the inner
Yeah.
circle and Reese. I feel like we completely just have lost Feyre and who she truly is deep down. I don't know. I kind of wish she gave him. I mean, I'm sure maybe because we're not seeing it from her point of view, maybe
Yeah.
she did come in hot and heavy and gave Reese the tongue lashing that he deserved and kicked his ass a little bit, but I don't know. I just think she was so calm talking to Cassie. And I feel like I know she said her feelings were hurt by all of them, but I really feel like it was just brushed over.
Yeah.
And I don't think that should have been brushed over.
Wasn't surprised by how she reacted. Like, I feel like as soon as she found out that conversation with Cassie, and I was like, duh, Feyre's gonna react like this. Of course she's gonna stay calm and be a good mom already. And also like in and to try and figure out how to save herself. Like, I feel like she's almost thankful that she knows now and can do something
No,
about
I
it.
know. I'm glad she is calm and I knew she would be fine at the end of the day, but I really
Mhm.
just wish she stood up for herself a little bit
Yeah,
more in the situation and not just been like, "Oh, Reese overreacted.
right.
Just come home." I don't know. I just feel like there should have been more expressed disappointment in Cassian and Amryn and Azriel and of course in
Yeah,
Reese.
I
But
agree. She probably felt
whatever.
it, but didn't wanna be the little ball that they thought she was gonna be. Almost kinda like proving them wrong in her own way, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I know.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there was a scene that we just didn't get to see where Reese got his ass
Yeah.
kicked.
I mean, I'm sure they definitely had words. And maybe she didn't say, like, "I'll rip your fucking throat out if you never tell me shit like that ever again," but I feel like she definitely probably told him that it was wrong of to keep that from
Yeah.
her. But before we
Yeah.
move on to chapter 48, let me just say my line quick for chapter 47. It has to do with Cass mind talk. So on page 488, Cassian asks Feyre how she's so calm about this. And Feyre says, the alternative is fear and panic. I will not let my son feel those things. I will fight for him, for us, until I no longer can. And Cassian says, we will fight for you too. And she says, I know. So this, I think,
Yeah.
really me that this baby is coming even before Reese at this point. Like the
Mhm.
sadness that she feels that Reese didn't tell her this is second to her now. She's like, what can I do
Yeah.
to save my baby? You know?
Yeah. I mean, that's true. She's like, "I'm putting my son first, and if you wanna
Yeah.
continue acting like a little shit, you don't have to be involved at all. Bye." No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
She said that.
He's just like, you want me to sign a divorce paper?
Yeah. "My son comes first, you bitch."
Who are you? What's your
Chapter 48. Cassian informs Nesta of their plan to be hiking for the next few days until they reach a lake. She also will be carrying a heavy backpack while they hike. While taking a short break on the hike, Cassian tells her to stay hydrated or she could pass out or fall off a mountain, and Cassian can see in that moment that she really hates herself so much that she doesn't even care if that happens, that she could potentially want that to happen. Nesta also has not spoken a word since she told Feyre about the baby. Our girl is really going through it.
depressing chapter for poor Nesta?
Yeah, not much happens because they're not speaking. And so,
Literally
really,
not
it's
speaking.
just talking about the mountains and the hike that they're on and how heavy the backpack is. And really, that's it.
Yeah, my notable line, chapter 48,
Oh,
page
yeah.
493, where Cassian opens the pack and chucked a canteen at her and says, "Fill this. If you faint, you might fall off the mountain and break every bone in your body." She didn't look at him, didn't let him see the words in her eyes. Good. Like, she is that low right now. She's like, I don't give a shit. If I faint and break my neck and fall down this mountain, it'll be better for everybody else and myself at this point. I will no longer feel this guilt that I carry with me that's probably heavier than that backpack that she's wearing. And that's why she doesn't care.
No, I know. And I think that's why it's so important to Cassian that they continue on this hike because of how badly he can see in her that she just doesn't care anymore.
Almost exactly what she does in the house when she has this bad mood or some interaction that is not good. She goes right to the stairs. So for her, I feel like this is just routine at this point. Like, she'll walk
Right.
wherever she needs to, whatever peaks, how many to get it out of her system.
Yeah, no, that's true. Which brings us to chapter 49. They are still hiking. I would have already died if I was Nesta. They have been doing
Yes.
the same thing for the past 2 days, hiking, breaking, sleeping, and then hiking all over again while still not speaking a single word to each other. Nesta faints, though, from dehydration, and Cassian forces water down her throat. But after another night, they finally make it to the lake, which supposedly has healing powers. And the second they get there, Nesta breaks down crying. I really thought, oh my God, I'm like, this is it. This is the end.
I
Nesta's
know.
like dehydrated. She's going to die.
Like, there
And
was gonna be way more of a heroic moment here for Cassian. Like, he was gonna have to grab her and save her and tumble down the mountain, but it didn't happen. He's just like, "Drink water, bitch."
yeah, she just falls like, poof, like right into the dirt. He's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Just kidding. He panics a little. He's like, Nesta. He's like, when? He's like, when was the last time you had anything to drink? And she's like,
Yeah.
literally, she's like, "Just leave me here to die."
Yeah, please.
She's over it. She's over the hiking. She's over Cassian making her hike, and she just wants to die. She's like, "I'm over it. I'll never be
Yeah.
fixed."
My notable line for chapter 49, page 501, where Nesta is thinking, was she worth being counted? She knew the answer and had always known it. Cassian whirled towards her, but Nesta didn't see him either, or hear his words, not as she buried her face in her hands and wept. Like, what do you
Oh,
mean, Nesta? You always knew. That's so sad.
it is so sad, but it's interesting that they reach this lake that supposedly has all these healing properties. And the second they get there, it's almost like she just has to let it all out finally.
Yeah. And she
Chapter 50. Nesta, finally in her sobbing panic attack, breaks down and tells Cassian all the reasons why she's a mess. Starting with, she let her father die with hate in her heart for him, and he loved her unconditionally. Nesta truly believes that she cannot fix all of the horrible things that she has done, and she cannot fix herself. Cassian comforts her and tells her that her father's death was not her fault. Nesta tells Cassian about how she cannot stand fires because it sounds like the cracking of her father's neck breaking. Cassian tells her she will get through this, but she has to be willing to fight for it and face it and embrace it. He then hands her a sword and she starts to practice the 8-pointed star. She completes it and he tells her to do it again. Our girl is just at the peak of her healing era. I feel like
yeah.
this was the dramatic point in the story where you see her kind of building up, healing, doing all this stuff, and then she just crashes down. But I feel like she did crash down, but she finally has reached the peak of her healing because of the crash that she just had.
Yeah. I feel like too, to even say it out loud, because she hasn't said any of this stuff out loud to anybody about her dad,
No.
even about her feeling guilty, whatever. And this is my notable line for this chapter, chapter 503. Nessa says, I can't undo it. I can't fix it. I can't fix that he is dead. I can't fix what I said to Feyre. I can't fix any of the horrible things I've ever done. So she's vocally expressing her.
Finally.
I feel like that is a huge part of anyone's healing journey. When you say it out loud and get it out of your
Yes.
energy, out of your body, you really do lighter.
Yes, and just to finally have someone to confide in and to tell someone because she
Yeah.
literally just was in her own head this whole time. And now Of course, Cassian knew she was going through it, but he even says himself that he didn't realize why she wasn't going near fires. Like, it finally all clicks to him because she
Yeah.
finally verbalizes it to him. Like, he's not a mind reader. He can see
Yeah.
her flinching and can see how her body reacts to certain things, but he doesn't know for sure. And now he does.
Like total shit in this instance. I've been lighting fires every single goddamn day and night, and it's been
Yeah.
bothering her.
I know. So we've reached part 3 in the book. So our final part, which is Valkyrie. So we went from novice to blade, and now we've reached the final step in our Valkyrie journey, which is to become a Valkyrie
Yes.
ourselves.
Woohoo!
So, chapter 51, Nesta is finally back at training after a week in the mountains with Cassian. After all the hiking, they spent a few extra days at the lake practicing with the sword and having lots of dirty, dirty sex.
Yes.
Gwen has gotten it into her head that in order for their training to be completed, they would need to be able to cut a ribbon in two. It is a Valkyrie test. Emery gets voluntold to try the ribbon first, but she is unsuccessful. Cassian, ever the show off, cuts the ribbon and is like, thank God I can do it. The girl gang tries to cut the ribbon at the beginning and end of every training, but none of them have been able to do it. Nesta asks Gwen to join one of the priestess's evening services so she can reincorporate music back into her life. Nesta is always concerned that once Gwen and Emery find out what kind of person she truly is, that they won't like her. But Gwen reassures her that she can see Nesta and she also feels the same way, that when they know Gwen's story, that they will never look at her the same way.
Yep.
I love their friendship. I really do.
I
And it's
know.
so
I do
crazy that they
too.
can just, like, look at each other now, and Emery knew she had to go first. Even Cassian's like, "What? You're not speaking."
Yeah. I know, they just have that eye to eye, that connection now, they're like,
Mm,
"Go on to
yeah,
me. Keep
no,
going."
you're not. And Gwen is like, "Well, you're the oldest, so you have to go first."
Yeah.
It's so funny. 'Cause Gwen is so young. I feel like Nesta's
Mm.
even older than Gwen, which is wild.
Oh my god, she is.
Is
'Cause is Gwen
I
19?
think she's only yeah, like, she's
She's 19?
very, very young.
Yeah.
And Nesta's definitely in
Hmm.
her 20s.
Yeah, I think she said Nesta was 25, right?
Yeah, I think so, or close to that.
At least, yeah.
So Gwen's the baby of the group. I feel like Gwen stomps her foot. She's like, "You're the oldest. You're going. I'm the baby, so you have to do what I say."
Yeah, she was definitely anxious about going first, and I know I would be too. I'd be like, "Oh, not
Oh,
me,
I'm
Nosegay."
not embarrassing myself first. Yeah, exactly. Nose game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be like Nesta.
All right, here's my notable line for chapter 51, page 520. Nesta is telling Gwen how she hurt others and herself by drinking and sleeping with strangers. And she says, "It's a long story and not one worth telling, but through it all, I've picked taverns and pleasure halls to frequent because of the music. I've always loved music. And I think I might be glad Feyre did this for me. The drinking, the males, I don't miss any of it, but the music, that I miss." So just to your point about them being good friends again, like she's opening up to Cassian,
Hmm.
uh, crying in the middle of the lake. She's also opening up to Gwen about her mistakes or what she can't
Yep.
fix. And also giving her some information about how to help her. You know, we haven't really been talking about music for Nesta except for 2 chapters ago when Elaine brings it
Right.
up. So for her to say it herself, like, I love music and do something that's actually good for her, she's definitely on the up.
She is. I agree.
Yeah.
All right, which brings us to chapter 52. Nesta attends the service and listens to the music and the priestess is singing, which surprise, Gwenny can sing.
Yes.
When Nesta closes her eyes, she can see herself flying over a mist-filled mountain and then she's inside of it. She finds a carved gate that leads her to the golden harp. Nesta's like, "Oh my god, I am surrounded by stones and I used my own bones to scribe for the harp." The harp is chatting to her and telling her to play it and join her voice with the harp. They will move between space together. Nesta immediately rushes to Cassian after the service is over to tell him what happened. He then goes to tell Reese, who hands him Nesta's new magical sword and tells him to go get the harp. The harp is in the prison. How crazy. Reese also wants to see what will happen when Nesta uses the sword.
Yeah. I was shocked. I was literally reading the word harp. Like, it was the 3rd time I saw the word harp
Mhm.
in the chapter, and I texted you, and I was like, "Harps?" with the side eyes? I'm like, something about to go
I
down."
know. I
And
totally forgot that that was how she found or scried for the harp. I completely just forgot
yeah.
that scene. But how crazy though that the harp was so close to them this whole time and in the
I
prison.
know. This whole time. Yeah, because 'cause they've been to the prison multiple times, Feyre and
And
Reese
Cassian.
and Cassian, yeah, and never even felt the energy or
Well, that's
anything.
goes back to whatever Amryn said that like the dread trove didn't want to be found, so
Oh,
no
that's
one would
true.
know or
Yeah,
remember it. AKA it didn't
yeah.
exist before Silver Flames.
Also, did the mask talk to her? Like, the harp is talking to her?
No.
I was gonna say, I don't remember the mask talk I remember the cauldron
Mhm.
talking, but I was like, "The mask never said a word to her."
No, it was just, like, glowing and floating to her towards her in
Yeah.
the water, but no, it never spoke to her, but she did speak to it when she wanted to take the mask off, and it came off, whereas
Yeah,
the
no,
harp,
they
well, I guess we'll talk about that, gives her a little bit of a harder time in the next chapter.
Yes, my notable lines for this chapter is Nesta hearing what the harp has to say. So in chapter 52, page 526, Nesta hears the harp say, "We shall open doors and pathways. We shall move through space in eons together. Our music will free us of earthly rules and borders."
It's just ready to go. It's like, I've been
Yeah.
stuck in this fucking cavern for gosh knows how long, and it's
Yeah.
ready to go. It's ready to play.
If that gets into the wrong hands,
Mhm.
danger. And I think Nesta and It are kind of a good match in that way. Like, they
Right.
wanna cause chaos, but also overall wanna do the right thing.
Yeah, I think Nesta is the perfect person to be the protector of the Dread Trove.
I agree.
So, chapter 53, Cassian and Nesta are on another adventure together as they hike the mountain to the prison. Every book, we see someone climbing this mountain over and over again.
Yeah.
Nesta's number one rule is to not let go of Cassian's hand, but while they are in there, when they reach the secret room Cassian had no idea about, there are wards surrounding it. Nesta is able to get through, but Cassian cannot. When Nesta grabs the harp, she sees a vision of what happened the last time someone used the harp, and she can also see Queen Brialyn wearing the crown. So, since they were both touching objects from the Dread Trove at the same time, she can see where Nesta was. Queen Brialyn now knows how important Gwen and Emery are to Nesta. Nesta, wanting to shut the doorway between her and the Queen, she begs the harp to let the wards down, but she eventually has to play the harp to let it release her from the wards. Nesta fills in a panicked Cassian on what she saw and tells Cassian the name of her sword Ataraxia. She is also so sweet and kisses Cassian on the cheek and tells Cassian that he is her friend. She also goes to tell him more, but Cassian tells Nesta he has always been her friend. But before she could say what she was going to say to him, which I wonder what that was going to be,
Yeah.
maybe some deeper feelings. But
Mm.
Cassian notices that the cell door to Lanthes is open. No!
Wild. I knew because we were going to the prison, we were gonna come in contact with something. But there was also a mention of something else that was in the prison. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. Right at the beginning, when she hears the scratches.
Yeah, it was another creature that Cassian had put away.
Yeah, so once that came up, I was not thinking it was going to be like the worst fucking one, Lanthes. I thought it was going to be that creature that they have an issue with.
Though I was concerned when she went through the secret door that just so happened to be next to Lanthe's cell.
Yeah,
That was a little wild. And then also
I
like
was shocked.
something bad happened when they went to go get the mask. A creature grabbed for Nesta and
Yeah.
pulled her under the water. So I felt like this is too easy. Like she plucked the harp strings to drop the wards and now they're just going to walk out happily with the harp like no harm done, no sweat,
Yeah.
no issues. I was like, "No way. This is too easy." So of course Lanthe's door was going to be open when they got back onto that secret door.
Yeah, and literally its power is to open doors. So if it wasn't going to free a creature from the prison, it was definitely going to open a door to something dangerous. And
Oh, for
I
sure.
never expected, and I know we'll talk about this in the last chapter, but I totally thought that the way she would get rid of Lanthes would be to open a door to another world. And I feel like that's how we were going to learn about
Oh.
another world, but it didn't happen and I was shocked.
That is actually such a good idea. I was thinking she was gonna, well, she was telling him to get in his cell, and then I thought she was just gonna pluck the string and the door would shut.
Yeah.
But no, that is so interesting. She could have opened a door to another world and kicked him through it.
Yeah, because we really haven't seen that it can open doors between worlds yet. We see she winnows in the same world and somewhere else in Valeris, but it's all the same world at this point. So I thought that's kind of how they were going to introduce it. So I was a little disappointed that the unkillable immortal monster could be killed, but also at the same time, Nesta is badass for that.
Yeah, no, and it's just showing her how crazy her cauldron powers truly are.
Yeah.
And when they're imbued in magical weapons, they can kill a deathless, immortal being.
Yeah, exactly. And how
Nuts.
about Braylon?
Ugh, I hate that bitch. I'm so sick of her. With
But
sitting there with the crown on her head, so
yeah, but
annoying.
she had the crown before
Yeah.
they had the mask even because the Autumn
Mhm.
Court soldiers attacked them in the bog of Ori.
Right.
So she just didn't have it on her head. Like, how did she know she could connect? I mean, I guess it makes sense that she didn't know and then kind of learn this information that she could
Yeah,
touch it at the same time as her.
maybe she just so happened not to have the crown on her head when Nesta had the mask on, and it was
Yeah,
just like a fluke this time that she so happened to have the crown sitting on her head when Nesta was touching the harp. I don't know, maybe
yeah.
she felt some energy, so she put it on. Who knows? But that bitch is crafty.
Yeah, and my notable line for this chapter has to do with Braylon and what she says to Nessa through this mind creepy thing. Chapter 53, page 535, Briallin says, "My spies have told me who your friends are, the half-breed and the broken Illyrian. Such lovely girls." Nessa says, "You come near them, and I will rip your throat out." Here's that again, second time in this section.
Yeah,
"I will hunt you down and gut you." Okay.
she
Braylon
will.
says, "Such bonds are foolish as you still holding on to the harp, which sings answers to all my questions. I know where you are, Nesta Archeron."
That is so
So,
scary. That is a
yeah,
scary sentence.
I feel like it can't be a fluke at that point. She has to know that her touching the crown and Nesta touching the harp will bring them together in this way. I feel like she wouldn't have said that if it was a fluke, but also it still confuses me why she didn't do it with the mask.
I know.
Maybe she just got desperate and really did find out the information later and kept the crown on her head at all times just because.
They already had one, and now she's like, "I need
Exactly.
to get the last one," and now she's
Yeah.
down 2 and she only has 1, so
Exactly. Yeah.
it's not gonna work well for her.
No.
Also, what do you think Nesta was gonna tell Cassian before she's interrupted with the door being opened?
I feel like she might have asked him to cuddle.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think she would have expressed any feelings, but she always steps with the physical thing first.
Right.
So to be intimate, I think she would say, "I want you to stay in my room," or "I want to sleep next to you," or "cuddle
Yeah,
you,"
I
or
wanna
something
get
of that.
closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. No, that's a good
I
one.
hope it happens
I know, I
soon.
loved that little scene, it was so cute with her kissing him on the cheek, and he's like,
I
"What was that
know.
for?"
Yeah, so cute.
Oh. And on to our last chapter of the section, chapter 54. We are dealing with yucky Lanthes. Nesta realizes the harp also opened his door when it released the wards around her because they were in such close proximity. Lanthes knows that Cassian and Nesta's scents are mixed together and starts to say, based on their scents, he would say that they are dot dot dot. But Cassian cuts him off. Cassian goes to attack Lanthes so that Nesta can escape. He throws her one of his siphons and her sword and tells her to run. Nesta runs, but she knows Cassian will die down there and she cannot let that happen. Brialyn also sent some of the Autumn Court soldiers she stole to come and try and take the harp from them. Nesta uses the harp to go back to Cassian's side, and she goes on the defense to attack Lanthes. Her sword, when it strikes him, actually causes him harm, and he wants to know what death god Nesta is. Lanthes turns himself into a golden haired fae, and he tells her he's heard of her, that they whispered over the seas about her, how she took from the cauldron. He shows her a vision of what they could be together, ruling. He shows them having sex, and the child that they would have would rule the entire universes. Nesta snaps herself out of the vision he is showing her and knows that she would never be with him and would never forget about Cassian. He's distracted enough that Cassian throws a blade at him, and then Nesta attacks him with the sword and he dies. Nesta uses the harp to transport an injured Cassian back to the river house, where Rhys comes running out of the house and Cassian passes out.
Wild.
Let's break this down little by
Yeah.
little. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this solidifies more than any other mention of it in this book or in any other book that Cassian and Nesta are definitely mates.
For sure. Yeah.
And Cassian definitely knows because he stopped him from saying it.
Yeah, I think he thought Nesta would probably completely freak out
Yeah.
and maybe not leave him down there like he wanted her to if she
Yeah.
knew that. Or
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe there could be another reason. He's like, don't tell her. I don't want her to never have sex with me ever again if I survive this. But I also think that Nesta knows too, deep down. Like, I really
Yeah.
do think she knows that, especially after the scene that I had talked about. I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before that, where she looks at Cassie and she's like shocked, like she's never seen him before.
Yeah, no, definitely. I would agree because even in this chapter, she's thinking, you can show me all the sex scenes you want with me, but I will never forget Cassian.
Yeah, I know
That's
I
a
will
mate
never
talk.
get better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some mate talk for sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Yeah.
And their scents are not just mixed because they're having sex. It just confirms it, I think, here. He was about
Yeah.
to tell them.
Hell yeah, for sure. I agree.
But Nesta does listen to Cassian and does run at first up the stairs and
Mhm.
away. But she's like, wait a second, I cannot leave him. This is like the Battle of Highburn all over again.
Yeah.
So she uses the harp to go back down to Cassian's aid. And instead of cowering this time and pushing her body over Cassian's for them to guide together, she's like, I'm going to fight you.
Yeah.
And picks up that sword and stabs at him. And it actually hurts him, where I feel like when Cassian was using his sword, he was annoyed, but the scream that he lets out when Nesta uses her sword is very different.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm going to mention my notable line here for chapter 54, page 547. Lanthe says, "You do not even know what you could do. Come, I shall show you. Come with me, Queen of Queens, and we shall return what was once lost. We shall rebuild to what we were before the Golden Legion of the Fae cast off their chains and overthrew us. We shall resurrect the wild hunt and ride rampant through the night. We shall build palaces of ice and flame, palaces of darkness and starlight. Magic shall flow untethered again."
Also, I think it was in this chapter or the chapter before when they're talking about the prison that Cassian is like remembering a conversation that Rhys had with him, that they thought that the prison could have been an eighth court, that the prison wasn't always the
Yes.
prison.
Yeah. So do you think all those people stuck in the stone were actually a court? Oh, shit. I got lots of predictions, apparently, more than I put on this page.
Yes, I forgot how much information you get about other things in this book. And I can't say more than that.
I can't wait to find out what those other things are.
Yes, this book is actually such an info dump that I didn't actually appreciate until rereading it this time.
Yeah. Well, thank God I have you because it was so fast that I was so confused at parts and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Huh?
Yeah, but again, with the queens, with Nesta, Queen of Queens, it's just insane. I'm just ready for it this time. Put the fucking crown on her head and make her the queen already.
Dude, Queen of Queens. We got high king, high queen talk.
Mhm.
There's no fucking way she doesn't end up the ultimate ruler.
Or a ruler somewhere.
Feyre, I'm sorry, but you're dead. She's gonna have to save the Night Court because you're gonna die, and so is Rhys. And my prediction's gonna come true. I know it.
That was so nonchalant. You're like, sorry, favorite, but you're dead.
I think it's true. I believe my prediction, but I mean, obviously, I hope that they're gonna get out of that.
Of course. You don't want favorite to die.
Even Feyre says when she finds out that the bone carver didn't show her a son
Right.
with wings. So that makes me nervous that the baby's not gonna survive.
Mhm.
Or do they do some kind of magical thing to get the wings away? I guess we'll have to see.
Yes.
That was a wild last few. The second we got to part 3, Valkyrie was nuts.
Yeah. It's always the last like chunk of all of Sarah J. Maas's books that everything finally starts piecing together and everything starts getting crazy.
I know. Now I know the next section that we read is going to be fucking nuts because it's nonstop. Once it starts, it's nonstop.
Right.
So before we end the episode, though, I do have a couple predictions that I would like to mention and re-mention here since I've mentioned a couple already. So I think the baby is definitely going to be a shapeshifter of some sorts, maybe, or somehow these wings are not going to be there. If she's even going to have this baby, if the baby will survive. I believe that the baby is going to be a shapeshifter and the wings can disappear during birth because she only had wings because she's a shapeshifter. So maybe the baby will inherit that from her. That's prediction number 1. Number 2, I think Nesta is going to be the one to save Feyre in the end. Just like she's the one that told her over everybody else, she's going to be the one that's either learning how to save her or physically actually saving her. And 3, I'm going to double down on my Nesta prediction that I made literally like 4 books ago. That she is going to be queen of all. Queen, some kind of queen. Queen of queens.
Nesta Archeron.
Yes. But that's all we have for you today. And we are going to probably be in for a whirlwind when we continue reading. So let's wrap this up and get to it. Please let us know what you think by leaving us a review and comments on any of the platforms you are listening/watching on or on our social media pages. This helps tremendously to get the word out and lead more listeners to find our show and tune in.
Yes, don't forget to email, follow, subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and tell all your friends about us. And we hope the rest of your day is blissful. Bye!
Thank you so much for listening. Join us next week where we start part 6 of A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas, covering chapters 55 through 63. Happy reading!